Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Today, the topic is just a gal standing in front of 2026. And obviously, I was writing about just kind of entering this new year and how it feels for, I think, a lot of us who had a hard 2025. And I know that's not all of us here in the States and in other places in the world. I know there are some people who are happy with what is happening, which is really hard for, people like me to fathom. But I don't assume and project that everybody feels the way that I do. Nonetheless, the people who are like-minded, some of us were just kind of like, it's a weird thing, like, what do you even say? Is it like Happy New Year? Is it, here comes another year? It's just, it was a little bit hard to kind of like dig deep to find the holiday cheer. And that doesn't mean that, it's just obviously getting to spend time with the people you love and cherish is always beautiful and joyful. But when you start thinking about the end of one year and the beginning of another, and sort of, there's such a tendency most years to be thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to let go of? Or what do I want to cultivate? And we're really in a different kind of situation at the moment. Like, for me, one of the things I was writing about is I ended up on the last day of 2025, I was at the local Social Security Administration office here to take care of something for one of my kids, and it was empty. The security guys were there. There were two of them, and it was very intense. Like, you walked in, it was one of those, like, put everything in the bins. They're going to like look through, one guy was looking through my purse and really pulling things out and opening things up. It was a very thorough hand search of my purse. And the other guy had the wand and was like, going all over my body. And there was one couple there in the office, and that was it. So the appointment itself was very quick, and when I left, I thought, maybe I will go to the DMV. Like, maybe this is a good day to run errands like that, because on the last day of the year, people are probably home just in their pajamas or, whatever it is that they're doing on this last day. Most people are not at work on December 31st here in the States, at least. So but it's not a bank holiday. So those government offices are still open. So I went over, I thought I did it. I was like, and the reason that I had to go is because I was getting all of these threatening letters and emails because my driver's license is set to expire on my birthday. Well, it's not anymore. I took care of it, but which is in February. So, not a lot of time. Like, even though it feels like it is, it's 6 weeks. It'll be here in no time. And a lot of things are backed up. Like, I knew that I had to get this done, but I kept putting it off because nobody really wants to go to the DMV except for like kids who are going to get their learner's permits, or maybe they're taking their driving test. Like, that's about it. Everyone else kind of dreads going to the DMV because of the lines and the whole thing. So, but I had to go in person this time because I was due for my eye exam. So I drove over and sure enough, it was empty there too. So I was like, this is amazing. This is like a life hack. So if you need to do these sort of like not very fun adulting excursions, the last day of the year is not a bad day to go. And I go in and I hadn't done the sort of like start the process online part. I just, because it wasn't a plan. I just kind of like on a whim drove over just to see. But I had all my documents with me, proof of address and all that stuff because of the Social Security Administration excursion I had already done. So I had everything with me that I knew I would need. And I used the computer there to fill out that form. And then I got a number, and my number was G154. And I sat down, and the chair was mostly empty. There were maybe like, I don't know, like 5, 6 other people there in the whole DMV. But they were on like customer like P118 or something. So it's like, I don't understand the letter number thing that's going on here. This feels like I could be here a really long time. But anyway, as it turned out, then like the next thing they called was G151. So I was called up to the desk 8, in like 2 minutes. And I get there and I'm going through like explaining to her, I just need to renew. Here's the form. I had that with me. I did have the driver's license, one of those alerts that had come in the mail. I had shoved in my bag at some point. So I had that with me. And she was like, you should just get a real ID. I mean, you can do what you want, but like you may as well, you're here. If you have your proof of address documents, you can just do that. It doesn't cost any more than the driver's license. And then like you can travel domestically and you don't need your passport. And anyway, she was very business, like all business. And she just was not. So I was like, okay, if that's what you think I should do, that's fine. I'm not here to like argue or make this harder. So I was fine with that. So I fill that out, and it overrides your prior driver's license form. So I had to like reestablish my political party. I had to kind of like re-register to vote. I had to do all those things, which I wasn't concerned about because I have my original birth certificate. I have everything I need. No matter what kind of shenanigans, anyone tries to, the federal government is trying to do all kinds of things right now to make it harder for women in particular to vote. I don't know if you're familiar with the SAVE Act, but if you aren't, you definitely want to be. And I have my passport, so I'm probably not someone who needed the real ID, but I just went ahead and did it. Okay, so I'm doing all that. And when I pulled into the parking lot there, one of the other things on my mind is I looked to find my current registration and I couldn't find it in my glove compartment, which is unheard of. I am very organized. I'm very type A. My, registration is it's in my glove compartment. Everything's like where it's supposed to be. So I then said to the woman, before I go to get my photo taken, which was the next part of the process, could I also get a copy of my registration? And she was like, have you lost it? And I said, I have. It's not in my glove compartment. And she was kind of looking at me like, who loses their registration? But, I just kind of like shrugged and smiled. I have teenagers. They use my car. I don't know. I'm not blaming my teenagers. I'm just saying my registration was not in my glove compartment. That's all I know. So she then says, actually, your registration is late. You're like, I think I was like a week or 10 days overdue, which then I remembered, oh, that's right. It's sitting on my desk where I do my accounting. I just thought it was a little bit later than it was. So these are the kinds of things that have been slipping through the cracks a little bit. Normally, that's the kind of thing I would have put an alert in my phone to make sure I didn't miss the date to send in. I would have renewed online for my registration, and I would have made sure there was I had ample time. But some of those things have been slipping through the cracks because I think, again, a lot of us are, who feel the way I do, are overwhelmed. It's been a lot. And if you do feel, deeply saddened by what has happened in this country over the last year, the worry, the anxiety, all of that stuff, especially for, I have kids, I have a teenage daughter, there's, I have friends, I have people who did not go to their children's high school graduation last year because they were worried about ICE vehicles circling the school, and they have family members that they were concerned about. And these are not hardened criminals. These are people who have been trying for years to doing things, quote unquote, the right way. And our immigration system is broken. We have a bureaucrat. It's like things take a very long time, not for everyone. Some people sail right through the immigration process and some people do not. And, it's very easy for people to make their judgments and, start saying things. They see somebody online, like, why didn't you, deal with this? Or how come you've been in this country so long and please educate yourself about how hard it is. We have had a problem that far predates the current administration, the one before it. It's been going on for decades. We need to revamp our immigration system because our immigrant community, we need it. We rely on it for forget about, the beauty of diversity, which has always been a part of this country. Please remind yourself about the Statue of Liberty and the melting pot and the fact that supposedly, there's who we say we are and who we've been, but this country was supposed to be a place where people could come to avoid religious persecution. It doesn't matter what, who you pray to, or bring me your tired, your, that's what we were, that was the idea. Whether we ever lived up to it, that's another conversation. Okay. Anyway, for people like me who have been worried about so many of my friends who fall into demographics of people who you do need to be worried about right now. And that's pretty much anyone who's not a straight, white, upwardly mobile man, Christian man. That's pretty much anyone who does not fall into that demographic is not, those are people you need to be concerned about. So, if you're paying attention. So, so those are all the things for people like me who have been heartbroken, devastated, watching due process, right? Just kind of go down the drain, watching all of these things happen for the last year where we're in a constitutional crisis. And I'm someone who loves the Constitution. And I grew up thinking the Supreme Court, I had such respect for the Supreme Court and for the three branches of government and for the checks and balances. I'm a little bit of a nerd with this stuff. So I have been particularly devastated to watch every guardrail that we have fail. And they have failed. That's been the really heartbreaking part. I think that some of what was so shocking for me at this time last year, a little bit later than this time last year, was to see, I genuinely thought in my heart, no matter what party people were in, I genuinely believe there were more people who were public servants, which is every senator, every congressperson, the president, everyone who is serving in any capacity in the federal government is a public servant, right? They're salaries are paid with our tax dollars. They work for us. And when you're talking about like senators or representatives, congresspeople, they're there to represent their constituents, us. So when you're talking about the Senate in particular, when you're talking about Congress, that is our most immediate source of representation, because we can call our senators, right? We can call our Congress people. We can email them. We are supposed to be able to go to their local offices and talk to them. Like our state, we're supposed to be able to go to the state capitol and like meet with our senators. Like we're supposed to be able to actually get representation. No taxation without representation. That's like part of the deal here. And when they go to Washington on our behalf, that's what they're supposed to be doing, is representing our interests. But all of that has just, it just failed. And I think that's the part that part did shock me, because I thought whether somebody, was Democrat, Republican, whatever, the oath that you take to uphold the Constitution, I thought more people would really care about that. I did. I thought more people would be loyal to the Constitution, to democracy, to this country than they would be to one man. And instead, that just has not proven to be the case, sadly. So that's been a real heartbreak for me. And I think that was a real shock. I thought there would be enough people that would be like, oh no, we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let, Congress controls the purse strings. We're not going to allow this administration to just cancel funding for all of these people who depend on it to be okay. Children, soft power like USAID, and all this talk about, abuse and fraud. Well, Doge did not get that was all that happened there. Is Elon Musk got everybody's very sensitive financial information. That's what happened. And, as far as like reducing waste and fraud, that did not happen. A lot of people got fired from government jobs that then they needed to hurry and bring back because, oops, we need those people desperately. It's not, and then the corruption happening. $1.8 billion is what the Trump family has received in cash and gifts since he was reelected in the last year. That's again, fact check me, please fact check me. So this is okay. So just to give you that context for people like me watching this happen, it's just been devastating and exhausting, and trying to figure out, like, once the shock wore off of, okay, this is not people, they're not going to, these senators are not going to stop him. These Congress people are not going to stop him. The Supreme Court is not going to stop him. There have been some legal cases and some judges that did, some federal judges that said no, but then they appeal, and unfortunately the Supreme Court has been compromised. It's like and then you've got like journalists. That's another thing that's broken my heart, right? Like, I grew up thinking that was a stronghold as well, the free press, and now you've got all these billionaires buying up newspapers, Jeffrey Bezos owning the Washington Post, and now Barry Weiss running CBS, like people with agendas, serious political agendas. So you've got journalists who want to say things, who want to share reports, and they're being shut down. At CBS, they had a whole report they wanted to do on like all these people that were deported to this horrible, El Salvador, to the terrible, the mass, just that mass deportation of these men that are in these, it's like 80 people in a cell. And that was shut down 2 hours before it was supposed to air on CBS because Barry Weiss said it wasn't ready. It was 6 months in the making with incredible journalists, everything like triple checked. And that was pulled. We're running into like state-run media now, like North Korea. Like this is not pretty what's happening. So that's the context, right? So things like putting an alert in my phone so I make sure that I pay my car registration on time, before. It's like some of that stuff's falling through the cracks in a way that it never has in my life. Okay, so I'm at the DMV, and now this woman's looking at me a little bit like, and I said, I'm really sorry. I'll just take care of it right now, which I did. I paid. So then she says to me, who is your car registered to? And I said, me. And she said, no. And I was like, at this point, I wanted to say yes, just to see what was going to happen, but I didn't. I said, is it registered to Honda Financial? Because I had leased the car originally. And when my dad died in July of 2023, I got about $9,000. And at the time I decided I'm going to use that money to pay off the rest of my lease. So I won't have a car payment anymore. I'll own the car and I won't have to worry about that as my son, my firstborn, is going to college. That'll be one less expense that I'm having to deal with. That seemed like a good use of that money. So that's what I did. So I'm then like standing there racking my brain thinking, did I not do what I was supposed to do in 2023 to make sure that the DMV knew that now the car was registered to me, which was like a title transfer? Because I felt like pretty positive I had done that. But now I was second guessing myself. And she said, no, it's not Honda Financial. She said, go take a picture of your license plate. And I was like, okay, but I mean, I'm sure that's the number that I gave you is my license plate number. And she was like, go take a picture of your license plate. So I know when to not argue with someone. So I go out, it's pouring. And I take a picture of my license plate. I come back in, it is the number. And she's like, okay, go get a picture of the VIN number. And so at that point, I didn't even like hesitate. I just went back out. I didn't even bother with the umbrella. I was just like, okay, whatever. So I go and I get the picture of the VIN number. I come back. She's like, okay, so the VIN number that is here attached to your license plate and your name is not the VIN number of your car. So that's where the problem is. She's like, somewhere along the line here, the wrong VIN number was attached to your vehicle. And for the last 4 years since you've had this car, you've been just renewing online, right? I said, yes. And she said, it's been the wrong VIN number the whole time. So it's like, okay, trying to figure out how could that have happened? Because they weren't even similar. The VIN number that they had and the VIN number that my car actually had, they weren't even they were similar to like the last 5, and there was just no similarity. So it's like, it's not even like you were off by a letter or numbers, it was completely not. So she's like, you need to call your insurance company right now and tell them they need to switch the VIN and make it, like retroactive for at least whatever, as far as they hit the last month or whatever it is, so that I can renew your registration. Otherwise I can't. So then I'm doing that from the DMV, and the guy on the phone was amazing. And he was like, I know what happened. He's like, did you buy this from a dealership? I said, yes. He said, okay. So probably when you left the dealership and went home and called your insurance to insure the car, you probably went off the paperwork and didn't go out to the car to double check the VIN number. And the dealership clearly put down the wrong VIN number. So that. And if I had not been there in person, I would have just renewed online and they would have renewed it again. And, who knows how many more years would have gone by. Anyway, it got settled, and but it was just like one of those things where I was standing there thinking, so many things have happened over the last several years. And, a lot of them I have talked about. My mom passed away at the end of 2021, a few weeks before Christmas, which was devastating. And the whole year leading up to her passing was devastating. She had ALS, which is just absolutely dreadful degenerative disease, motor neuron degenerative disease, that is just, it's so painful to have someone you love just deteriorate in that way. And there's really nothing you can do. It's very, very painful. And, this is a story for another day. It's a story for my memoir, actually, but she blamed me for her ALS, which was incredibly painful. And there is a whole story there, but that was incredibly painful, as you can imagine. And then we did a lot of healing in the last 3 weeks of her life, which was something I'm, really, really grateful for. But all of that happened. And there were some things that happened at the very end of her life as we were doing all of that healing that were so traumatizing. Just things that happened in the hospital, things that I was, dealing with. And I'm gonna start crying if I think about it for too long, which it wouldn't be the first time I started crying on this podcast. But there were just some things that happened that were really, I think there are certain things in life that we are just not meant to see, or, images that we're not supposed to, really not supposed to be able to integrate or process. And yet we have to. And I think there are many of us who have been in that situation where we're seeing things or we're dealing with things, and you have no choice in the moment except to step up, right? You're going to deal with whatever it is you're dealing with. But you might not realize until later the impact some of those things have had on your nervous system and on your heart and on your mind, and I think a lot of that happened, but I am someone who just, you carry on, right? You keep going. And after my mom passed away, 6 months after my mom passed away, December, not even 4 months after, my half sister passed away, and very suddenly she had a stroke. And she had been looking after our dad. So different moms, same dad. And, she was the daughter from my dad's first marriage, and he had a son and a daughter from that marriage. Then he had an affair with my mother. They ended up getting married. They had me. Then he moved on to his third wife, and then eventually his fourth wife. So my half sister passed away. When that happened, I ended up moving my dad out to LA to an assisted living facility near me because there wasn't anybody else who was going to be able to take care of him. And so the last year of his life, I was doing that whole taking him to the doctor, taking him whatever. My dad was he was a very, how can I say this? He just wasn't a good dad. He was not the kind of person you would want to have as your dad. He was a tremendous womanizer. He hurt every woman in his path, and all of his children, and all three of us. And, I think he was not somebody that you would want as your dad, as your husband, as your boyfriend, as your casual guy you're seeing. I just think basically maybe he was good. I think he was good as an uncle, as a friend, as someone to sit next to at a dinner party, because he's very charming, very charismatic, very smart, very creative, not judgmental. So he had a lot of good qualities, but you would not have wanted him as your dad. And so it was hard to move him out here and figure out what I owed him. And I had to grapple with that a little bit. I was still grieving, my mom. I was not okay. And he hurt her. He hurt my mother very badly. And I think the way that he hurt her had a huge impact on my relationship with her. So I was already in I was deep in just sort of processing all of that. And some of these things came to light too at the end of her life, and or came into full relief. You know, it was a little bit more obvious. Anyway, I decided ultimately it wasn't really so much what I owed him. It was just like, you know, who do I want to be in this world? And I don't think anyone should leave this earth feeling alone, basically. So I showed up for him, you know, in a way that I feel good about. And yeah, you know, I have to be able to live with myself ultimately. So I very good care of him, made sure he was okay, made sure he was comfortable, went to visit him, took him to Dunkin' Donuts, which was his favorite place to go for whatever reason. You know, I took care of him. I made sure he had his Mott's apple juice, and, you know, I did a good job. I took care of him. And then he passed away. And so, you know, so I'm standing there in the DMV and I'm thinking, like, it's totally possible I didn't switch the registration. Like, that's possible. We also had a global pandemic. Like, a lot of things happened. But ultimately it ended up being this dealership person who just probably filled out the paperwork and put the wrong VIN number down. That's all it was. It wasn't me. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't any of that. But I think that what happened when I got home from that whole thing, and I got it all done. I got my picture taken. I'm sure it was great because it was like pouring down on me as I was getting all these pictures taken of like the license plate, the VIN number. But I got it done. And, you know, I think one of the really good things that has happened over the last several years is I have become a lot more forgiving with myself than I ever have been in my life. And I used to be extremely type A perfectionist, you know, like the idea that I would ever be a week late on my, like, paying my car registration, you know, unheard of. Like, the fact that I can't find my car registration in my glove compartment, like, unheard, you know, just things like this that would never happen. And now I'm just like, you know what? Like, if this woman at the DMV wants to judge me or think I'm a screw, like, it's fine. She can think whatever she wants. I'm not going to do that to myself because I know how the last several years have been, and they've been really tough. And eventually, what ended up happening is, I would say, I'm trying to remember when I finally decided, you know, I'm going to just talk to someone and kind of see if this is, like, quote unquote, the normal amount of grief, or if I'm like, if, you know, maybe I need a little bit of help, or like what's going on. Because what I was noticing is I was just like, my emotions were so close to the surface that I would, you know, if anyone expressed that they were grieving, or I would just instantly be like in tears with them, you know, which is not necessarily, I mean, that's not a bad thing, but I felt like, is it okay? Like, maybe I'm in, you know, perimenopause. Like, am I okay? I just kind of wanted to check in with someone and make sure, like, am I all right? And that has been a whole thing, a whole journey. I had my GP at the time was a man. That was the first person that I talked to. And I said, you know, like, I'm trying to figure out if I'm having sort of like, this was the first year after my mom passed, like, quote unquote, the normal amount of, like, if this is just sort of normal grief. I've never been through anything like this before, or if I'm in like perimenopause, I'm not really sure. You know, could we check my hormones? Like, and he said to me, are you unpleasant to be around? And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Would your kid say you're unpleasant to be around? I was like, I started crying. I was like, I hope not. You know, and it was just like instant, the fact that his instant concern was like for the people around me. Am I unpleasant to be around? Not like, how are you? What's happening inside you, but how is like whatever's happening for you impacting the people around you? That's where he was focused. So obviously he's not my doctor anymore. But I had just a lot of people that wanted to kind of like, treat the symptoms. Like even my OBGYN at the time, and she's a woman, she was like, I can put you on, a low level antidepressant. I was like, I don't want that. If I'm just grieving, then I want to just grieve. I'm just trying to find out, could we take my hormones? Could we just check my hormones? Could someone just please just take some blood and tell me what's going on? Like, that's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to understand and check in and make sure like I'm okay. I'm trying to advocate for myself here. That's all I want. And so we did eventually do that. And my hormone levels were pretty normal, which is, you're going to hear that from a lot of women. Oh, your hormone levels are in the normal range. Anyway, eventually what happened is I spoke to a therapist who was like, you have post-traumatic stress disorder. That is what's going on here. And ADHD, which I had never been diagnosed with in my life. And I also misunderstood what ADHD is, by the way. I thought that was like, you can't focus. I have no trouble focusing. Focusing is not my problem. What was really interesting is I think that I had learned to cope, and my coping strategies had worked for a very long time. The way it presents for me is I will focus on, I'll put everything at a 10. So a like level of importance. So if I'm trying to get something done, like I have a deadline for a book, right? That is a 10. And then if I like walk into the house and realize, oh shoot, I need to throw in a load of laundry, that's a 10 too. So I'm going to stop and throw in the load of laundry. And if I then like walk by one of my kids' rooms and they haven't made their, I'm going to go in and make the bed because that's a 10. Like everything's at a 10. So everything has to get done now. I will eventually go back and keep writing, but I wasn't able to like not stop and do everything. And I think also just like the single mom years, like 9 years, like if you don't do it right when it's in front of you, it's not going to get done. So I had learned to live like that. But I think I'd been living like that my whole life. Like I'm going to get the things done that are in front of me right now, right away. That's the best and safest way to go. And so that was really helpful. Those diagnoses were really helpful for me to understand a little bit what was going on, because some of my coping mechanisms were not working as well because I think of the grief and the overwhelm. And I think a lot of people are in that boat right now, from the last year, whether you have a PTSD diagnosis or ADHD or no alphabet letters of any kind. I just think people who are feel the way that I do about this country and about what's happening and the way that we're treating each other and things that are happening in the world, you get to a certain age and you start thinking about, if you have children, you start thinking about your children, and what kind of world they're inheriting here. You think about other people's children. And I have a whole feeling about that there really is no such thing as other people's children, whether you have children or you don't. It's like, all children are all of our children, right? It's like first of all, we were all children at some point. And, last year, I don't even know how long ago now, maybe like 4 months, 6 months, that's something else I was writing about. The recent timeline, when I go to think about how long ago did something happen, if it happened in the last year, good luck to me. It could be 2 months ago, it could be 4 months ago, it could be 6 months ago. I don't know. Like, I don't know, because I think the timeline has been so flooded with painful things. And if you're grieving also, it kind of like opens this portal where there's this like river of grief that's running through you all the time. So if something happens in the world that your heart goes out to you're like you're in that river again. You're like swimming in that river again. And I don't again necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think we need more people who are feeling things intensely, but it's exhausting. So you have to, if you're one of those people who is feeling things intensely, and a lot of women who go through perimenopause or who are postmenopausal, I'm still in perimenopause, believe it or not. My mom got her period till she was 62 years old. So there's no formula for this thing. That's the other thing that people need to understand. If you're, a woman going through perimenopause, or you're in that hormone zone, like there is no formula. And there has been a dearth of research, and women's issues are like way down now. We were already the disparity between the amount of research money that has been spent on men versus women. This is, again, go ahead and fact check me on this, but medical research, we have always spent way more money researching diseases that affect men, and then like extrapolating. It's like, oh, okay, and it's probably the same for women. And it's not. Like, we have different things. Like, men don't get ovarian cancer. Like, we need our own research for things. Men don't go through perimenopause and they don't become postmenopausal. Like, there are things that women need. We go through childbirth, some of us, we go through, some people have postpartum depression. Like, there are things that we need, since we are 51% of the population. Like, and also, by the way, here in the States, responsible for 70 to 85% of consumer spending. I think we deserve a little respect and a little funding for the issues that affect us, instead of having a government that is restricting our rights in half the states and counting. Like, as far as healthcare, and it's just, yeah. So I think there are a lot of us who've been feeling this deep overwhelm, and the fear and anxiety of like, what kind of world, or like, what's going to happen here. And so certain things might be slipping through the cracks, like, whatever, not putting an alert in your phone, or, misplacing something you wouldn't normally misplace. And I'm really grateful that I am not beating myself up. And that, I was saying, if you're going to have any resolution moving into this next year, I would, for me personally, like I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions anyway, because I think people make all these like big resolutions, like, oh, I'm going to get really healthy, and I'm going to do all, I'm going to commit to this, and I'm going to commit to that. And then by like, February, it's a list of reasons they have to beat themselves up because they're not, meeting the list or whatever. So I'm never a big fan of that. I'm a fan of living intentionally and thinking about, how do I want to feel? Like, what's working for me? What's not working for me? And like, how would I like to be feeling? What would I like to be able to show up for in my life? Are there things that I'm not showing up for right now because I'm just not feeling well enough to like do these things that I'm trying to do? And how can I help myself, maybe feel a little bit better? Like, what are a couple of things that I could try to do that might help increase my energy, or just like get me moving a little bit? Like, I'm all for that. I'm just not for this like grandiose list of things that people start to set for themselves that are maybe not realistic, or especially if you're already feeling overwhelmed. And so for me, like, one of the only things really that I'm committed to doing is just being gentle with myself, continuing to do that, just be really gentle with myself, really compassionate, really understanding. And yeah, there are things that I want to do to just try to like continue to strengthen that it's a new thing for me to be gentle with myself. I want to strengthen that tendency and that quality, because I need it. I do not need tough love right now. That is not what I need. I don't need an inner critic. I don't need to berate myself. What I need is energy to fight the good fight. There's a lot of things. I have hope. I am not someone who's like, okay, we're screwed. It's over. Like I feel very strongly that there are more people who want the world to be better than this. This is not, I don't think the majority of people want this kind of like vitriol and cruelty, and I really don't. I think most people are pretty reasonable and they want reasonable things. I think when you boil it down, most people, they want to feel safe. They want to feel like they can take care of their families. I don't think most people are so obsessed with what their neighbors are doing or how their neighbors are loving or who their neighbors are praying to or not praying to. Like, I don't think most people are so obsessed with that. I think that there's a lot of online stuff that isn't helping. I think there are a lot of quote unquote news programs that are not news, that are not helping. I think that we could have a collective lawsuit against Fox News. I think they have absolutely harmed so many families. Genuinely, I just think it's a rage machine. I am not saying there aren't a lot of, news opinion programs that are more liberal. There absolutely are. There are a lot of left-leaning, liberal-leaning news, quote-unquote news programs that are really opinion-driven, not just like straight facts. And I'm very well aware of that. But there's a difference between that and like rage, just rage baiting, hatred feeding, it's so, I have a lot of very sad feelings about that, but I have a lot of hope. I just do not think most people want this. I don't. I think it's already falling apart. I just don't think most people want this. I don't think most people want this kind of, a president who on Christmas Day is calling like half the people in the country radical left scum. Merry Christmas. Like, what? It's just like, oh, what a lovely Christmas message. I just don't think most people want this. And so I have a lot of hope and a lot of faith that, we can turn things around. And for me, turning things around is not just getting these people out. I'm at the point now where I'm saving my energy. I can't really, anyone who's still supporting this is, for me, from my perspective, you're supporting a man who got like Ghislaine Maxwell, who is absolutely, nobody's refuting this, okay, convicted of pedophilia and rape. But, she helped Jeffrey Epstein, but she participated and she was behind bars for 20 years in a federal prison in Florida. And the president of the United States got her moved to a prison camp in Texas, no bars. That's where the, Real Housewife person, like sex offenders like her are not even eligible to be at a place like that. And he got it waived. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? It's like, I'm just tired of it. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep having this conversation. I can't keep saying, like, if you voted for this because you think abortion is murder, so that's why you voted Republican, like abortions have gone up since we overturned Roe. And the president takes credit for overturning Roe. He's very proud of that. And abortions have gone up. And in the states with the most restrictive abortion bans, maternal and infant mortality rates have risen. So if you want less of that, this is not the way to vote. Like, I just, it's like school shootings. You try to talk to people about sane gun control legislation. And that's a constitutional amendment that, when you start talking to people they love their guns, they get really impassioned about that one amendment in the Constitution. They don't care if he violates every other amendment, but don't touch that amendment. And that you're interpreting that amendment. This is a living document. It was always meant to be a living document. And clearly what we're doing is not working. But when you have people that refuse to even have like a little conversation about that, don't tell me you're pro-life. Children are dying at school all the time. They're being shot at school all the time. If you will not have a reasonable conversation about reasonable legislation, and that's not going to do it. That's not going to be enough. There's a whole bunch of other things, mental health initiatives, absolutely, which, by the way, this administration also cut $1 billion in funding for mental health programs that were designed to decrease gun violence at school. So if you want to say it isn't guns, it's people who kill people, well, why would you then defund programs designed to decrease that, to be helping people with mental health issues, if that's what you think? Like, we need it all. We need to be addressing this issue from lots of different areas. No one's coming for your precious guns, but I think a lot of us are really tired of seeing children killed at school. I certainly am. I've been, I just don't understand. I can't, I can't with that. I cannot understand a country that allows this to go on, week after week, year after year, decade after decade. It's unconscionable and embarrassing and horrifying. So, I think there are more people who want universal background checks and like a reasonable waiting period, just some things like, one of the things that occurred to me, and I'm going to write about it, but it's like, if you have a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old and your minor child gets a hold of your car keys, right, and takes your car and accidentally kills someone, do you know how much trouble you're in? Like criminally and civilly, that your kid did this driving your vehicle, it's like your life is over. But if your 12 or 13-year-old gets a hold of your weapon that should have been locked up and goes into a school and kills multiple, where are the criminal and civil issues for you? Where's the punishment? Because if we upped that would change things. More gun owners would start locking away their, like, I'm talking about just some reasonable things that we do, it's like, anyway. So for people like me, I do have hope, because I think that there are people who want just to be able to live and enjoy life and not be, angry and scared and anxious and hating on their neighbors. And like, this is like ridiculous. Okay. We get this much time here. It's such a blink of time to be spending it, trying to control what other people are doing, and trying to deny women rights, and trying to deny gay people rights, and trying to deny black people rights, and trying to deny brown people rights. It's like, what are you doing? It just, stop. Like, really. Lifetime is going by and you're missing it. You're missing it, and you're hurting people with the precious time you have here. That's what you're doing. It's like, what are you doing? So I can't, for me, I'm trying to save my energy to have compassion for myself and have compassion for people who feel like me, and also energy to try to help, to try to shift things here and make the world the way I want it to be, through lots of different, every action I can think of to take, I take. If there's something I can do, if there's an email I can write, if there's, an organization doing good work that I can either volunteer, or if I can donate even a little bit, I will do it. Like, whatever I can do, whatever phone calls, whatever letters, whatever protests, whatever boycotts, like, I will do it, because words are not enough. Words don't mean anything. You just like, if you're just talking about, oh, this it should be better, it should be different, but you're not doing anything, that's not it. It's like, where's the action? Where's the action, right? So you need energy for that. And in order to have energy, you also kind of have to have compassion for yourself when you don't have energy or when you're hurting. Um, so that's my big resolution for this next year, is to just try to be gentle with myself and understanding, and yes, try to do the things that I know make me feel good, which I do anyway. I've been meditating every day for decades, and that's life-saving for me. And I'm someone who needs to move my body or my head goes crazy. If I don't move my body and get into my body and pay attention to sensation in my body, because sensation's always happening in the present, like forget it. So I need that stuff. So I know that about me. And those are things that I recommend, even if it's like whatever it is for you. For me, it's yoga. I love that works for me, but I'm not a zealot. It's like whatever works for you. But if you're a little bit stuck, even just starting with like a walk, like just a little walk around the neighborhood without your phone. That's what I would suggest. Without your phone, just like notice things, just like look around, look at like a flower, look at, the snow, wherever you are, look at like the trees around you. I mean, just anything. Yeah. So and I really am wishing you a beautiful new year. I'm hopeful that it has some good surprises in store for us. And, I would recommend that you reach out to the people who are like-minded, that you fill your tank that way. I was talking about, if I ran things, there'd be a trap door with a slide, and you could hit the button when you needed to, and like take that slide to like sleepaway camp, and you could stay for a week or a month, and you could like set your own agenda. You could sleep for a few days, you could finger paint, you could sing, you could hike, you could, whatever you wanted to do, like sleepaway camp used to be. You could take acting classes, you could write all day, you could, and when you were ready, and everything would pause, like your bills, your responsibilities, nobody would know you were gone. It was just everything would freeze in your timeline. You'd come back from camp when you were ready, and you'd be replenished, right? But since I don't have this magical ability to create like an opt-out button with the trap door and the slide and the sleepaway camp, it's like what I can say is just try to, find some space to fill your tank and try to replenish yourself, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And know that there are a lot of people, like you're not alone, and reach out to the people who feel the way you do, because it's very energizing. That will help to fill your tank. So those are my recommendations for this new year. And I am very, I'm sending you a lot of love and wishes for your good health. And I hope that there are some really good surprises in store for you personally and for all of us collectively. And, onward, here we go, for sure. But yeah, I think the last thing I said is I don't think it's ever smart for an administration to enrage a whole generation of perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. I just don't think that's a smart plan. So I'll just leave you with that. And until next time, you know where to find me.